back to the Gridiron Expert. We're continuing our ACC football predictions today, and our next team looked like college football playoff contenders until losing 3 straight games to end the season, but this year returned 14 starters and still remain national title contenders. They are the Miami Hurricanes. Miami was just 1 win away from an undefeated regular season before losing to a 4-win Pittsburgh team in the season finale in what was arguably one of the biggest upsets of the college football season. Despite that loss, the Hurricanes still had a shot at making the college football playoff, facing Clemson in the ACC championship game. Had they won that, they would have been in the college football playoff, but they had lost that game 38-3. So after losing that game, they went to a New Year's Six Bowl. They went to the Orange Bowl, played in Miami at their home stadium, and they still lost that game to Wisconsin. So 3 straight losses to close out the season, putting them at 10-3 in what looked like a season they were going to finally break through, potentially win the ACC and make the college football playoff, and just Mark Richt's second year with the team. But this year they have a bit of a chip on their shoulder. They returned 14 starters from a team that actually really did have a solid season last year, and once again are going to be the heavy favorites in the Coastal Division and could potentially vie for a spot in the college football playoff. Those 7 returning starters on offense are very solid. They returned Malik Rosier at quarterback, one that received a lot of criticism among Miami fans, people that even weren't Miami fans. I thought he did a solid job last year. Could have been better, but I thought he did okay. And I think he's going to do better this year with the whole offseason to progress and learn to get better, working on some things with the coaches. I think he's going to come out and maybe surprise some people this year. They returned Travis Homer at running back, the leading rusher from last year, and then Amon Richards, who was putting up some solid numbers last year before getting hurt and missing those last 3 games of the season. So he was a big difference maker there. I don't think he would have played a huge role in terms of changing the outcome of those 3 losses, but will still put up some big numbers and is going to be one of Rozier's biggest targets this year. On defense, another 7 starters returning on that side of the ball, including 4 seniors in the secondary. So you can expect the turnover chain to be passed around quite a bit this season. They're going to be turning over the ball a lot, just like they did last season. You got Michael Jackson, Jaquan Johnson in that secondary. You've got Joe Jackson on the defensive line. So this is going to be another very solid Miami defense, one that's going to probably put fear into some of these ACC opponents, one that I'm very excited to watch this year. I know a lot of people got annoyed with the turnover chain, but you can't deny the results. They were getting a lot of turnovers last season, and they were one of the more dominant defenses in the country last year when it came to that category. So they open up the season against LSU in what is going to be probably the most anticipated game of opening weekend. This is one that I'm really looking forward to. All the analysts are looking forward to. If you go anywhere on the internet, you're going to see so much smack talk between Miami fans and LSU fans. This is a big-time game played at Arlington at Dallas Cowboys Stadium. So I like Miami in this game. I know a lot of people are going to be picking LSU. I like Miami's defense. LSU's strength this year is going to be their defense. I made the mistake of saying they didn't have much depth in my LSU video. And yes, they do have some depth and do have some talent. They were getting Joe Burrow at quarterback. They have Jonathan Giles, a transfer from Texas Tech at wide receiver. They have a solid offensive line. The defense, as I said in my LSU video, is going to be solid. They're still going to be a very solid defense and by far going to be the strength with them. They have Greedy Williams there. They have Devin White. They've got John Battle there as well. So this is going to be a solid LSU defense that's going to be able to turn over the ball and really shut down some opponents this year. It's really going to come down to Miami's offense because I don't see LSU's offense getting much production against this stiff Miami defense. And I like Miami's offense just a little bit better than the Tigers. I like Homer. I like Richards. I think Malik Rosier is going to have a decent day against his LSU secondary. And I'm going to give Miami a big-time win on Sunday night over the LSU Tigers. This is going to be, potentially be one of those instant classic games and a bigger game for, I think, Miami, because I think they're going to be bigger college football playoff contenders than LSU will. So this will be a great resume booster there. They return home to play Savannah State or win there. On the road at Toledo, it's a Toledo team that is always going to be dominant or has been dominant in the past in the MAC conference and put up 30 points against Miami last year on the road. So this is a Toledo team that Miami can't afford to overlook, playing at the Glass Bowl, one of the more difficult places to play in the MAC. I think Miami is going to get the win here at Toledo, but they certainly don't want to overlook them and keep this game close. But Toledo losing some big-time starters on both sides of the ball there. Miami gets a win. Florida International back in Miami, another win there. So they are 4-0 going into ACC play against North Carolina. And I did a little research. If you go back and look at Miami last year, they were a 3-loss team one coming in the season finale, one in the conference championship game, and one in their bowl game. But if you go back and look, there were 4 games that could have really changed the entire outcome of this Miami season. On the road at Florida State, they won by 4 points. Back at home against Georgia Tech, they won by 1 point. Still at home, they played Syracuse, won by 8. And against North Carolina, who went 3-9 last year, on the road, they only won by 5. So all of those within 1 possession. Miami's just a couple plays away from losing those games and really turning what could have been a very good season into a disaster. So they're lucky to come away with those victories, and all of those were against really subpar teams. None of those teams, except for Florida State, made a bowl game, and Florida State really struggled last year as well. So Miami needs to watch out this year to avoid those kind of mishaps and try to avoid those close games. And those were all in 4 consecutive weeks. After that, they won 3 straight against solid teams like Virginia Tech and Notre Dame. So they obviously found something that clicked. They need to make sure they can try to avoid that this season. ACC play begins with North Carolina. Larry Fedora, I think, is going to get this Tar Heels team back into contention in the ACC Coastal after a horrible year last year that was just marked by injuries and some inexperience. But this year they return a lot of starters on the defensive side of the ball, 8 starters there. Chaz Surratt at quarterback. I think he had a decent year last year. I think he's going to have an even better year this year. But it is in Miami. I just don't see North Carolina having enough to come into Miami and win this game. But they need to watch out. I mean, Miami only won this game against a bad North Carolina team last year by 5. So this is going to be a better North Carolina team. They can't afford to lose this one at home. But I'm going to give them the win over the Tar Heels. And then Florida State, obviously a big-time rivalry game and one of the toughest opponents on Miami's schedule for this season. They should get DeAndre Francois back. So that's a big-time get for them after he injured his ACL in the season opener against Alabama. They get Cam Akers back at running back, a solid offensive line. So I think I could see this game being a defensive battle, going back and forth. Not many teams scoring here, not many points being scored. Last year, Miami only winning on the road by 4 points, and they won that game late. So this game back in Miami, great crowds from the Seminoles and the Hurricanes. I like the Hurricanes in this one, mostly due to their defense. Honestly, it's going to be at home. I think they're going to be hyped for this game. It's always going to be hyped for this type of rivalry game. But I think they're going to be able to shut down DeAndre Francois, bottle up Cam Akers. They're going to force DeAndre Francois to win the game through the air. I don't feel too confident in that. I think Miami gets a close win over the Seminoles here. And then at Virginia, another team who gave Miami a bit of a test last year. Miami pulled away late, I think winning by 16, but it was close. I think Virginia even leading by 14 at one point. This game being on the road, but they lose their star quarterback in Kurt Benkert. Bronco Mendenhall doing a great job with the Cavaliers. I just don't see him getting back to a bowl this year. I think Miami's just going to have too much talent on both sides of the ball, and I just don't see them losing on the road to what's going to be a weaker Cavaliers team, and that's another win there. And so far, they are undefeated. That's going to be 7-0 going into their bye week, and then they play Boston College. Major trap game here. Boston College also coming off a bye week, coming into this game. It's on a Friday night, so it's a short week. Boston College finally finding their identity on the offensive side of the ball. You got Anthony Brown at quarterback, a quarterback situation that Boston College has really never had in the past. They've never really found stability at quarterback. They found it in Brown. A.J. Dillon at running back. So that's going to be huge for them. Over 1,500 yards on the ground last year as a freshman. They return, I think, all of their starters along the offensive line. It's a Friday night. It's at Boston College. Boston College is going to be rested. They've got this game circled on their calendar. This could be the big-time win Boston College and Steve Addazio can get, and I think they do get this win. I think Miami, maybe a little rusty coming out of the bye week. They're going to be preparing for it, but I think they might overlook Boston College a little bit, and I really like this Boston College team is going to have a solid defense regardless and a really potent offense. I think Miami loses here on the road to the Eagles, and a loss there. Then they get Duke back at home to start November, the most important month in college football. Duke returning a lot of starters on the defensive side of the ball as well. Got 8 starters there. Daniel Jones at quarterback, who I really liked last year, and tons of senior wide receivers. I think all of his wide receivers plus his tight end are seniors, so a very experienced offense as well. Miami's lucky this game is at home. Last year, I think they beat Duke 31-6. If this game was at Duke this year, I might be leaning a little towards the Blue Devils' way, but I like this one at home. I think they're able to get a couple turnovers off of Daniel Jones, and they get a win over the Blue Devils. And then on the road at Georgia Tech, back-to-back road games, as a matter of fact, at Georgia Tech and at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, they handled fairly easily last year, but Georgia Tech, they only beat by 1 point, and that was in Miami, and Miami actually won that game late, I think, as time expired. So they're certainly not a team they can afford to overlook, especially this late in the season, still in the hunt for the ACC title and a college football playoff berth. We know the type of offense Georgia Tech runs. Taquan Marshall, a great dual-threat quarterback, put up some big numbers last year, going to put up even bigger numbers this year. Georgia Tech, it's going to be a hostile environment. They've put off some big upsets at their home stadium before. They're going to be hyped for this game. I just think Miami is going to be able to bottle up that offense. Georgia Tech not going to have much of a defense, I don't think, this year. It will be improved, but not much. And I think Miami's going to be able to go on the road and get a big-time win against the Yellow Jackets, mostly thanks, once again, to their defense. So, once again, a win here for the Hurricanes. And then they're really just 2 wins away from a one-loss season, getting back to the ACC Championship. They've got to go through Virginia Tech. Very difficult place to play. A Virginia Tech team that's going to have a better quarterback in Josh Jackson, one that had a solid year last year just as a freshman, is going to even improve as a sophomore. I know some people think people are going to go through a sophomore slump. I don't see that with Jackson. I think he's going to have a solid season. And then, of course, a Bud Foster defense that is always pretty dominant, always usually fairly solid defense. Miami won that game 28-10 last year, but that was in Miami. Completely different ball game here. Miami can't afford to crack like they did last year at the end of the season, saying that the finish line is so close, getting to the ACC Championship, but they still got to go through Virginia Tech and Pittsburgh. I'm going to give the edge to the Hurricanes. I'm just going to give them the edge there. I think this Bud Foster defense is still going to be solid, but not as strong, and this is actually going to be a game where Miami's offense is going to play a bigger role than their defense. I think Rozier is going to come through for them. I think Homer's going to have a big day on the ground. I think the Miami offense is what's going to get them to victory over this Virginia Tech team, and what could be a little bit of a lackluster performance by their defense. So a close win against the Hokies on the road, and then Pittsburgh at home. A revenge game. Pittsburgh, a team that returns Kenny Pickett at quarterback, the one that led them to the win over Miami last year at home, and 9 starters on defense. So if that defense comes in ready to play and shuts down this Miami offense, watch out, we might have another game on our hands. But Miami is going to be angry. They're coming off a 10-point loss to Pittsburgh last year, a game they really shouldn't have lost. They just caught them on a bad day. It was embarrassing for the Hurricanes. I don't see any way Miami loses this game. With the circumstances they have, knowing they're 1 win away from an 11-1 season and making the ACC Championship, revenge on their mind from what happened last year against a Pittsburgh team that really shouldn't be that great and will be borderline bowl eligible. I don't see any way they lose this. Miami gets a big win. They're going to make sure they put it on the Panthers this year, and a win for the Hurricanes at home over Pittsburgh, which is going to give them an 11-1 record on the year, which is what I predicted last year. Now, I know a lot of people will criticize me for that one loss to Boston College, but I do like this Boston College team, and I could see them surprising some people. They're going to upset somebody. I think it's going to be Miami with an extra week of preparation and the type of team they have this year. But by far the toughest games on Miami's schedule, LSU, Florida State, and I think Boston College and maybe Virginia Tech would be thrown in there. So maybe 4 fairly difficult games for the Hurricanes this year. But like I said, they have a chip on their shoulder. They were so close to greatness last year, and they returned 14 starters this year to try to get to where they couldn't get last year. And that's going to be the College Football Playoff and an ACC Championship. And of course, they're going to have to probably once again go through Clemson to clinch that ACC Championship game. But I think it will be closer than it was last year. So once again, a very solid year for Miami. They're not going to go undefeated. A lot of people will criticize me for that Boston College loss, but I do not see the Hurricanes going undefeated. They will lose to somebody. Maybe it's LSU. Maybe it's Florida State. But I think Miami's more likely to lose on the road than they are at home. And I think their toughest road game is going to be Boston College or Virginia Tech. And I am choosing the Eagles in this one. So 11-1 for the Hurricanes, another ACC Championship appearance, and then what else is going to happen from there? So another solid year for the Hurricanes in year 3 of the Mark Richt era. As always, go check us out at Gridiron Expert on Twitter and at The Gridiron Expert on Instagram, and always here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.